ready? Oh, by 25. Sorry.
Top.
And, well,
It's all good.
That's good. Yeah, that's fine. We're not going to say anything important for at least 10 minutes.
I plan to say nothing important at all.
That's fine too.
that's fine too.
Ready when you are.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. This is our presentation. On this screen, I already forgot where I am. We are calling this Line, or the value of iterating on the same show year after year after year after year with various new stuff. We are people. Our names are Alex, Kevin.
We have a slide about it, but it doesn't want to tell you.
Oh man,
There we go.
we're already having tech problems.
I know.
We can't even
Trust
slides.
us.
But there's no time to like go into backgrounds and all that, and architecture and theater and all the crazy client projects we do. But we just want to go right into like talking about the things that we get up to. What's this slide about, Kevin?
Oh, well, we make a lot of stuff over at the Lens, and we make it real fast.
Super fast.
Thing we do. And almost all of our projects are new technology and stuff we haven't worked with, or combining technologies that don't want to work together. And as such, we're constantly in a prototyping phase, which I love and find very freeing.
Not stressful at all.
Not at all stressful. Every project is new, which is exciting, except for like the stakeholders of the company that's like, maybe a couple easy wins this year, guys. And listen, we love it. We love it. It is certainly for our personalities. We're like very focused on what is the new most interesting thing. We love to send things out the door that are like good enough. Perfectionism has been a real downfall in my career, and so I have abandoned it desperately, and VR has been a really welcoming place for that. But what this talk presupposes is what if we didn't?
What if we didn't do that?
Right, what if we had a project that we knew would never end and we didn't have to freak out about it? And what if we had a client who was just so generous that they were in fact the holiday spirit? And that's not because we have a client who's really great, it's because this project doesn't serve a client. This project serves the client of Christmas time. And as a New York Jew, I can say, universally one of the most important things in American culture, right? So we have, in fact, you want to talk about the project itself.
Introducing Christmas Carol VR. Did you unhide the slide with Robert?
I didn't. Do you want me to?
Yeah, unhide it.
Okay.
Give a little bit of background. So, back in 2019, Kevin and I and other cool people were in Miami at the Theater Communications Group Conference. Wonderful people, all desperately afraid of technology, and we try our best to show them cool things that will get them excited about how this can all be your friend and how really it's taking all the skills you already have as theater makers and just finding new ways to express it, and it's not the kind of thing you need to be a crazy tech-savvy person to do. So we try to show demos all the time at these kinds of conferences, also USITT and Offer America and places like here at Worlds in Play, the inaugural conference, amazing. And this was Robert Gray Fleming checking out an experience that Kevin and I had worked on called That Kind of Guy, which was a lovely little tabletop theater Magic Leap experience, and Robert took off the headset, said, "This is amazing, wonderful, would love to work with you guys sometime," and theater companies say that to us all the time, and then we never hear from them again, which is fine. But Robert actually called us back a couple years later in 2021 and said, "Pandemic seems almost done, right? Maybe. They said they wanted to try to remount their one-man production of Christmas Carol, which stars Wanda Gregory Maupin in their space, and they wanted to follow, all the COVID restrictions of like only a few people in the whole house. And as a one-man show, the ghosts they like to have portrayed by pre-recorded elements. So they asked Lens if we could create some ghost characters using Unreal Engine, using metahumans, using nice lighting, and just give them some MP4 files, some real simple things that could be projected onto screens in the actual space, so Gregory could spin around and go, "Oh my God, Ghost of Christmas Past, it's so terrifying." And what we realized was what they wanted was so much of a built-out environment. They didn't just want the characters, they wanted like certain kinds of lighting, and you see the set design and all these things, where it's like, well, why don't we just do a virtual version of the show at the same time? So we talked to Gregory Maupin, who was like, "Oh, hey, would that mean I need to have like a mocap suit under my costume?" And we said, "Yes." And he's like, "I'm not super into that." And we said, "We don't blame you, it's fine," because luckily we had this guy who's been standing here very silently for a long time, who is an incredible performer, won Ari Tar, who's been working in the space for a long time, very comfortable with it. And Ari had a very defining moment when he was younger, seeing Sir Patrick Stewart doing an incredible production of Christmas Carol. And Ari was thrilled to jump on board and go on this wild ride with us, which has been 3 years now. And so that first year in 2021, we were trying to figure out the simplest way to take all these assets we'd made primarily for the physical production and to have a virtual reality production as well. So everyone, for both the first year 2021 and last year 2022, they were seeing the show in headsets or on computers connected to the cloud, We hadn't optimized anything. We weren't trying to treat this like a video game, so we just used very powerful cloud computers, and you had to connect to those cloud computers to join it. So one of the many things you'll hear us talk about that were different this year was actually trying to optimize a version of the experience that anyone could download and experience in some way. And also, oh, sorry, go back real quick. Just a nice little note here is, yeah, in our experience, go to conferences, talk about this stuff, find out what people are interested in, and you know, it's a lot better than pitching to people why they should hire you. Just show them what you're excited about, and then if they come to you and say, hey, we'd really like to hire you to do a thing, that is much nicer. So we try to do as much of that as we can. Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
Some of the features. Oh yeah, point to me on this slide. Some of the features. This is a small sampling of some of the features that we have had to build out over the last 3 years in order to make this show the thing that we wanted this show to be. And let's start real simple with multiplayer through OSC, Alex. Or how much do we want to talk through?
I don't think we want to talk
Right,
very much of this
let's
at
skip
all. I think we'll say very briefly that like we had to create like our own multiplayer system. We had to figure out how to do metahumans in a very custom way. We wanted to figure out how to do queuing in a way that was very efficient. And everything here, as you'll hear us talk about throughout this presentation, is us dog fooding our own techniques and methods, not just for ourselves, but because we really sincerely do want to one day be able to hand this to Jordan and anyone else in this room and say, hey, Drew, you too can put on a show like this using these tools that we've made super, super easy to use. Okay.
So when we first did this, Alex was like, I am so excited to do this every year and really improve it. And all of us on the team went, what? But we just finished it. We just got out the door. And we all, clenched our little butts and dug back in. What we've learned now 3 times in is that, unquestionably, this has become our favorite thing. In part because we can relax a little bit, because we know who the client is, and the client is Christmas. And in part because it really does give us a chance to take space and reflect, right? This is the most obvious thing. Every artist in the world knows this. I don't know a single artist who actually ascribes to this, but every opportunity you have to walk away from your project and come back to it 6 months later, I promise, will be an improvement to your project. That space alone is among the most beneficial things you can add to art. We don't really get 6 months because we're idiots, but still, we get some time. Starting a project literally that isn't from scratch is a magnificent thing to be able to just walk back into this and go, well, we know what was working and let's go and improve those things. Which leads to this third point, which is something we're still learning, which is that we always do that. We say, oh, this will be so easy. We'll just improve these couple of things. And then we open the project or
Pandora's box.
Right, and it's oh, and also these 700 other things we want to do. And what happened this year, for instance, was we had a 4-month runway to make this thing happen, and we were still in the last 2 weeks of crunch time because we just can't stop ourselves from adding features. So learn that lesson from us and don't do that. It sucks. Do better.
Yeah, I think Kate Stock also covered this in some degree of don't try to do anything if you can't have 6 months to refine it and QA it and test it over and over again.
This is our glamorous office, by the way.
Glamorous, yeah, all the equipment, magic leaps and index and all that.
Working with the classical piece, so once we realized yes, it's so wonderful to have this reiteration possibility if we're just remounting a production, which by the way, sort of the premise of this talk and something we don't really actually talk about, is that this is the oldest trick in the book for theater. Every Lord theater in the country does A Christmas Carol every year because it works, because they already have all the stuff for it, because audiences know it and they want to come. It just works, right? And this is the whole point. You can do anything you want to A Christmas Carol. Every version of A Christmas Carol that you can imagine has already happened. Somebody's done it. No one's ever broken it. At the end of it, Scrooge always feels good. That's the nice thing about classical theater is you really can't fuck it up. The other thing is that you can advertise it without having, if you rake stuff in XR, you know what an incredible nightmare it is to explain to anyone anything about your project. Literally what you are spending your time on. So being able to say, oh, it's A Christmas Carol first, and then say it's in VR is I would say just name every project you have something that people recognize moving forward, just to trick them into thinking they know what they're getting. But realistically, audience education is one of the biggest barriers we suffer. using a classical or a classical-ish piece.
Yeah. And one of the questions for these kinds of productions all the time is, who's the target audience? If you're doing a live XR theater piece, are you trying to get theater people to try XR for the first time? Are you trying to get video game players to try theater? What's that overlap look like? And certainly there are people, I include myself in this, who are very happy to watch like 8 versions of Christmas Carol every year because it's just a story that I love, which is also great for rehearsal when you're doing the same version of the show 100 times. So there are people like me out there who just are happy to see every new version of Christmas Carol. And so just as Kevin was speaking of, really easy to start with, hey folks, it's Christmas Carol. And then there are, 5 different ways to see it, and, we hope it's not too scary, and we go from there.
Just on that point,
Yeah.
Alex and I are very different people.
Does not watch Christmas Carol tonight.
I do. I love Christmas Carol. I love Christmas.
This is my best friend.
But truly, when he was like, I think there's an audience of people who are just looking for a new version of Christmas Carol, and I was like, all right, sure. And I quickly learned that we're both right. There were as many people out there who were like, really, you need another Christmas Carol, as there were another one for no reason.
And
Slow, low stakes iteration. Kevin made the slide and I haven't looked at it, so I'm
I
trying
totally made this slide. I made this slide for you.
All right, so thank you. Some of the things that we have learned along the way, because here's the thing too, everything we do with our crazy little VR theater experiments, they are coming out of R&D that we get clients to pay for. So we did stuff with AI this year, AI Charles Dickens based on RE. We've been talking about that a lot during our demos the past couple days, and that grew out of a client project where we were paid by Vodafone and friends to do a thing at London Tech Week where there's a metahuman used car salesman who's going to tell you all about a car using AI. And so we used in-world AI as part of that. And by the time we got to the end of it, we thought, maybe there's something that can be useful here, which led to hey, maybe we don't need to have Ari working quite as hard at the beginning of the show, and we can have an AI version of him that starts to welcome people into the space. So that is the kind of stuff that happens during the year when we're doing our client work, but then also just by the nature of iterating on Christmas Carol, we come up with new things as well. Line is our little in-progress VR theater game that grew out of me finding out very last minute that I was going to be presenting a version of this in Seoul in South Korea for the Seoul Performing Arts Festival. I knew they wanted demos, I knew they wanted a 2-hour talk, I knew they wanted a 2-day Unreal Engine workshop. By the way, come to me for all your Unreal Engine instruction needs. And I did not understand that they wanted a live performance. So our team, June in particular, did a great job, very last minute, taking what we had done for Christmas Carol in 2021 and finding a way to make it basically a karaoke game where it's follow the bouncing ball of all the words. And so the actor who I was performing with, I didn't know I was going to be performing, we were just able to look at the lines on screen, just use phones, all the body capture is pre-recorded, and it worked. It was a show that just worked with little to no rehearsal, and then we started to see opportunities for something like that for, rehearsal, or putting on a show, or a game, maybe with points, we'll see. So we're iterating on that. Mentioned AI Dickens. OSC is, of course, Open Sound Control. It gets used in live things all the time, and we have beaten OSC to death with all the different ways we're using it. It is the backbone of our custom multiplayer system. It's how we do all of our facial tracking. It is how we do all the cues in the show. It allows us to do things like use software like Touch OSC, so we can actually cue our entire Unreal Engine experience from something like an iPad instead of opening up Unreal. So the fewer times we have to say Unreal, and the more we can tell someone here's a really easy way to do that one-man theater show you want to do. We're in good hands. And then just mentioning briefly that one thing that's a constant struggle is the body capture. So, we're playing with Radical AI for web-based motion capture. Ari's going to show you Rococo. Great presentation earlier about, OptiTrack and some of the optical systems out there. And then Meta, for all their faults, is actually doing a really good job figuring out how to get pretty good-looking body capture entirely from a headset and 2 controllers. So there's a lot of AI going on there. And what I like about their approach is it's not preferring accuracy, it's preferring don't make it look like a David Cronenberg film. Even if it's not quite right, it's you're never going to have an elbow that's tucked inside someone's pelvis, and that's quite nice. So we're looking forward to iterating more on that kind of stuff as well. And this is more just for the end of the presentation. We need to cut to Ari at some point.
Right.
Yeah, we'll do that last slide in a little bit to be and if you liked that, here's other things we need to check out on. Let's Alt-tab over to Parsec, and let's introduce Ari Tar. This is Ari Tar playing Scrooge in his Rococo suit right now. Just let the range up. Go ahead, Ari. Say hi. Say a few words.
This is very chance. This chance because I want it.
And Ari, can I
It's going to be a
Or Kevin, do you want to pull up his Unreal instance? So this is what it looks like in Rococo Studio. And then, Parsec, over in Parsec. We just want to minimize his Rococo Studio. There we go. So just minimize that guy. And so this is the view, Unreal. This is what Ari sees right now as a performer.
And I will. Fred.
She tried alt tab and
Get out the bicycle.
oh, nope. Sorry, alt here for full screen.
Wheels like that.
There we go.
Sorry about screw this with the browse. That's like.
And Ari, do you want to show what it looks like when you pick up screws like a little kitty cat?
That's already. Growing screws. Thanks, my puppet. Trucks.
So this was kind of a
Pretty much, you're not that sleepy too.
sleepy face. Yeah. This was kind of a wild idea that David Gotchfeld, our director, had this year. Do you want to mention something about this?
Yeah, so David, what David was trying to solve for the problem, the avatar problem that we have in this show, which is that we have Ari playing a myriad characters, and two of them are Charles Dickens and Ebenezer Scrooge. Those are the only two avatars we have for that actor. And as such, you would see him change from Dickens, the narrator, to Scrooge, the character. But then Scrooge would turn into Fred, for instance, and not change. And this was dramaturgically frustrating for audience and for our director. And he thought, wouldn't it be lovely to have a persistent narrator on stage? And how do we move them together in ways that don't feel wildly uncanny? And we found that having him embody both of them at the same time was distracting, and we were losing track. And so we thought what David really wanted was like, what if I could just pick him up like a doll and move him over, because he is the prop through which Dickens is telling this story. And listen, if I am honest with you, I think we all agree it only half works. Artistically, it's satisfied the question, But it was incredibly exciting because this was an idea that literally would only work in virtual reality. There's no physical manifestation of this where we can literally disembody a human being. Nor would we want to. It would be unsettling and imperfect. When we hit unsettling and imperfect in VR, people are already there, so it doesn't matter.
What's up? Is that working?
Yeah.
Okay, real quick, Marshall back there is just going to show a little bit of what it's like to have two performers. So Ari, if you can hear this too, we're going to have Marshall.
I'm not seeing that bad feed though.
You're not seeing
Face
this?
tracking is working, but I'm not.
Are you inside the experience?
Yeah.
Are you in a different experience?
Maybe just open and put it on, let's see what happens, yeah. But what we wanted to try to demonstrate briefly is what it's like for Ari to work with another actor. So we had Debbie Deere playing all the ghosts. Debbie does not have Ari's full Rococo vocab setup, so Debbie would be doing everything entirely from our own little custom janky IK system using the MetaQuest Pro and the hand tracking. So here we go.
Oh.
So there's Marshall right now. Can you open your mouth, Marshall? Yeah. That. So he's playing the Ghost of Christmas Past right now, and yes, wonderful. And what's quite nice is the fact that we do now have a VR headset that is $1,000, used to be much more expensive, that can do full facial tracking and is able to do some version of body work. Marshall, can you also just show a little bit of what you can do with your hands just using the controllers? Just squeezing the controllers to open and close your hands and that kind of stuff. But yeah, or we can see it from Ari's perspective too. So you notice Ari is able to see both the third-person view of his characters, which feels a lot like puppeteering, but right now Ari is doing the first-person view, so he can look down and see his hands and all of that. Ari, anything you want to say about how it feels to jump between these different characters in the third-person mode and first-person modes?
Schizophrenic. See, so if you're able to see my own physical work and to perform that as two characters, it's very beautifully emotionally to switch so rapidly between characters. But what really surprised me was that how shortly it became very natural, and even seeing myself performing a scene from a third-person disembodied view became strangely very natural as well. But
it is worth mentioning that Ari is empirically, Ari is the most experienced VR actor in the world. I guarantee you can't find anybody who spent more time doing this, and I know a lot of VR actors. Let's see some VR actors in this room today.
it's very sweet.
So take what he says with a grain of salt, because I've met a lot of people, and myself included, who cannot do what he can do at the speed at which he can do it.
And that being said, though, like Ari is such a great collaborator to start to build out these tools with, because Marshall's inside the podium right now. We should also show the queuing system and jump to some different queues. What's great is we build all these tools. We hand this big box of things to Ari, and he says, I can use all of these. And we know, of course, like a typical performer who hasn't done a lot of VR can maybe only use a few of those, but the fact that we built them all, then we can say, oh, okay, let's refine this one that has to do with IK, this one that involves a third-person view, this one that lets you turn yourself invisible or mute yourself or unmute yourself. Trying to be on this quest to make all of this as intuitive and straightforward as possible is really interesting and useful. Kevin, if you want to Alt-Tab real quick over to the view over here. And Ari, if you wouldn't mind going into emergency mode, we don't currently have our setup running that does Ari's Rococo broadcast to everyone. So we have what's called emergency mode, which go over to the running stage management build. There you go. Yeah. So if you go ahead and load up the next queue, Kevin, maybe like 1.0. So we're starting in Dickens' room. Sorry, I kind of lost track of what I was saying there. Ari is in Rococo. Right now we're not broadcasting this Rococo vocab data to everyone. So when we go into emergency mode, it basically puts it in the same state as Debbie performing, which is all the body capture just happening from the headset and the controllers. And then for anyone who's in the back and can see the computers, and over here, you will be able to see, everything that is going on. This is what it looks like for our stage manager. Steph this year had this pulled up and was able to do certain kinds of things in addition to loading and going to different queues. Did you press spacebar, Kevin? Loaded 0, click into it. There's all these other kind of buttons that are available for things that might just need to happen over the course of the show. If we had a troll, if we had someone who was like ruining the experience for everyone else or something like that, click into the actual scene, Kevin, press spacebar, sorry. There we go. So now we're like getting out of Dickens' home and we're dissolving into London, and we can see Ari over there as Dickens if you want to get a little closer to him, Kevin. And yep.
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, and also note the stage manager can also just observe, like, oh, there's something funky going on with Ari's Rococo suit. And Steph could also hit Ari emergency mode. Also, this is a good time to let anyone who wants to check out that iPad over there, and I'll just grab it for a second and then hand it around. Of course, we want people to see the show in VR if they can. A lot of good reasons why someone might not want to see the show in VR, and if they don't want to do that, they can play it like Fortnite, the immersive theater video game, or they can watch our live stream. And one of the ways we do the live stream is we have a bunch of different camera angles that will snap automatically to, Scrooge's face, Dickens' face, wide shot, close-up, etc. But we also use something in Unreal Engine called Bcam. I'll bridge you around to see something. And Bcam basically allows you to treat an iPad or an iOS device as though it is a real camera in space. It uses AR, and so you'll notice if I walk around or use some of the touch controls to do this kind of thing, you can start to see things that are actually happening in the space. So this allows for a much more dynamic camera angle, which can then be part of the live stream. Carlos Austin, our pal who does all of the live cinematic cutting, he is in Austin, Texas, with basically a video village of all the different views that are happening at any given moment, and so he knows at any moment when he cuts during the live stream to this particular view, what it's going to look like. So feel free to just pass this around and take a moment to take a look around, use the touch controls. The left side will move you kind of on the horizontal plane, and then your right thumb can make you go up and down or rotate around. Anything you want to say about all this, Kevin?
Nope.
One thing to note too is if you're an actor or you're in the stage management instance, you have different information versus the client builds that are back there. So if you're an actor, it's really helpful to know where's upstage, where's stage right, where's stage left. It is useful to know things like the IP addresses of everyone, especially if someone tells us from a tech support's perspective that something is going wrong. It's easier to identify someone by their IP versus their name. Also, there's like some pre-show things here, like doing an audio check, because of course you want to make sure everything's working before the show starts. And how are we doing on time? 15 minutes. So we're talking pretty fast. We're trying to cover things as quickly as possible. Let's pause for a moment and say, any questions so far about everything we're going through?
Or about other reasons.
Yeah,
So just to clarify, is this run in parallel to the live production that they do, or is this?
The virtual cam stuff?
But yeah, the whole gestalt.
Yeah. Yes.
It's all the live. It's only live.
All at the same time, yeah. All live. Oh, it just wants you to, don't cover the camera. Sorry, just dropped the case there. There we go. Yes. Yep, just want to see the floor. Yeah, so at any given moment when there's a live show happening, there are essentially 3 different ways to see the show. One is in VR, one is as a video game using an Xbox controller or a mouse and keyboard, and then the final one is the YouTube live stream. If you wanted to start to mix and match those, fun fact, anyone who is running the actual build themselves, they can play director if they want to. You actually have access to all the same camera angles that our editor Carlos does, and you can decide if you want to, like, I just want to turn this into my cinematography masterclass and start jumping between all the different camera views and record your screen and make your own little Christmas Carol movie.
So just to clarify, is
Yeah.
the voice coming from the line before this?
The voice.
Oh, and then he's just doing the body.
No.
He's it's all the one guy.
No. So this is a separate, but I know the same to treat all exclusive production as the atmosphere of Louisville production.
Right, that's a little different. Yeah,
Yes, so they did it they did it that first year with the big virtual opportunities and COVID, and their audience, their very classical American Lord audience was like, what about our old Christmas Carol that we all loved exactly as it was? And Robert Barry Fleming, who is, I think, a really savvy and good artistic director, was like, you know what, you're right, we'll bring back the old one. As a lens, please keep going. And they gave us all the assets, and they've been really wonderful with like rights and ongoing usage, and so we're no longer doing it live until Actors Theater once again is like, you know what, fuck them, let's do it. And in the meantime, it's just carrying annually. That's not real. That's a good word. Thank you. We're just trying to carry the torch annually.
And so you notice right now, literally all I need to do to progress through the normal elements of the show is hit spacebar. It's kind of nice, pretty easy. And also, if I want to jump to some of these cameras I mentioned, by default, so it's the number keys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. By default, they'll kind of like lurk from one spot to another. If I hold the shift key, I can get these like much more, pre-configured versions. This is kind of a rotating aerial shot. And by the way, as I'm changing the cues, that should be happening for everyone in the back as well. They should also be seeing things that are changing inside the experience. We've got 7, 8, 9, 10 when there's a ghost. 0 actually should be whoever is moving the V camera around right now, whoever's moving the V camera around right now, that's actually what we're seeing here. So that's like a special thing where we say, whoever's doing the V cam, anyone can see what they're seeing across all time. So all those computers back there, they could also press the 0 key and see the same kind of view, which is kind of fun.
Which during the run, that was our lead cinematographer.
Yes,
I
that was
like
exactly
the idea
right.
that we just hand that power to some audience member.
You're looking at the sky.
Right. Right. Another thing, is because this show was in the round, and blocking was really confusing for everybody. It's a show that's in the round where you can't see any physical. I mean, obviously you don't have any physical landmarks because you're in VR. The only thing you had was set pieces, and those change scene to scene. And the background is, I think, lovely, but it's similar enough that it's not super helpful in terms of orienting. And so that's why you see like big stage left, stage right, upstage. And also on the floor, we have upstage, downstage, stage left, stage right. Something we talked about and did not do for reasons, but could be done easily, is making literal blocking maps for your actors. It would be crazy easy to let the actors know exactly where they need to go and when through invisible signaling like this, which applications of which I will let you imagine. But I think if nothing else, understudy rehearsals can basically be totally eliminated with this kind of technology. And if you've ever worked a professional run, you know just how incredibly expensive, frustrating, and nightmarish understudy rehearsals are for every swing. He's like, oh god, it's finally happening. We're finally giving a presentation where the ceiling falls.
And Ari, no pressure to actually do anything from the show, but it might be cool to show a little bit of what it looks like when you have Dickens and Scrooge facing each other, and you start to jump back and forth between them. Who's played the improv game Freeze before? So you might recognize a little bit of what Ari ends up doing as part of this when he has to bounce between different characters. Oh, and if you want to talk, Ari, we can't hear you.
Yeah, we're...
Where's the camera?
Where's the camera? It is by your shoulder, your left shoulder. Up. Here you go. Up. Hold on. If you turn around, I'm behind you right now.
This is fine, actually. That angle's
Yeah, this is fine. Just go ahead, Ari. I got you.
I thought it was the voice of school, because Nick gave me also so brief this first intimation he had. But, I'd write a deal to be fair and you, then you're forward now. Have come there. I'd write a views, stop, and you're rich enough. If I could work by you, the memory you need to curse about Merry Christmas or it's and that cat. It all gets switched around. So before I was within, will you bury with a state of horror in this heart? Come, don't get uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow. I wonder, I also think only working all your friends. Good ask that you have got my calibrations. You know, if I'm sorry with all my heart on you, so is Bruce, but I'll keep my Christmas humor till the last. So, on Merry Christmas, Uncle. Yes, Christmas time is the most important time of year. Also, I'm Jewish. Well, I must agree. I love this guy.
Love it. I also love Marley just hanging out in the back.
Just creeping.
Yes, do it.
Kiss each other. It was very sweet, actually, in the last show. Here we go. In the last show, Dickens and Marley were hugging, and it was like, oh, this is very sweet. Also, you'll notice that the avatars for all the characters are these little lens flares that kind of move around. And it's quite nice because they're not really distracting. It does feel like something that could be happening from the light. But then Ari also had this lovely idea, because there's a Christmas tree inside Dickens's home, that at the end, when everyone comes back to Dickens's home, that he invites everyone to go inside the Christmas tree and become a little Christmas bauble. And I found it so delightful and cozy and warm to just be inside a Christmas tree pretending to be an ornament, posing for a photo. So that could be an experience all in itself.
So when he's inside, how did he know what the camera was? Is the camera like a different color lens flare than the people attending?
So an interesting thing about the colors, Alana, so all of them are based on actually the IP address. So if you've got like a family of 4 all on different machines watching from the same house, they'll all be the same color. And so yes, there were certain, because our host and the stage managers were always from the same place, they were always the same color, so Ari could recognize them that way. He also has the ability to turn on IP addresses, names, things like that. You might have also noticed at the bottom there's a little message box. That's the way that if you wanted to speak to other audience members, to Ari himself, there are moments where Ari might see what you were saying and actually comment on it as part of his recital for the show.
Please, okay. Good question. It's interesting, I'm noticing a lot of fidelity with the face and the expression of the face. How much fidelity does Ari have over gesticulation of the fingers?
So when he's using the Rococo Smart Gloves, amazingly, perfectly. We did have Ari switch over into emergency mode. I don't know if he can come back from that. Is that a one-way street?
We were never able to undo it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure it's tested.
Well,
So with using the controllers,
It's got I think it's 2 options. There's 2 to 3 options.
okay.
Yeah, well, what I'll try to do is at least show you
And I think you can
Rococo
this.
Studio here, just so you get more sense of what it looks like for Ari. Oh, this is Rococo Studio. Ari, are you able to activate Rococo again? No, don't worry about it in Christmas Carol. I'm just in Rococo Studio.
I lost Rococo to
No worries.
I plugged it back in and it's not been restored.
That's fine. See, this, as was mentioned earlier, the trouble with inertial mocap suits is they do only work about 80% of the time. So that is something that we have always had contingency plans ready to go for. But that being said, yes, when those gloves are working, wonderful finger articulation. Right now, because we have Ari in the mode where all that's happening is it has the data points of his head and his hands, it's more limited. And we've got our own naite going on. And all of the finger work that happens is based on Ari's position on the controllers.
Is it more than 3 options? It's more than just like claw, finger guns, and closed?
Yeah, he can do what else can he do? I'm trying to imagine being in VR. He can do thumbs up. He can do a few things. Yeah, you can see his hands right now.
He can open and close the hand, yeah. I think face is just on contact with the trigger.
That's one thing I've found that's always really interesting is that there's a difference of a hand like this versus if a hand
Feels like
Right.
going after
with the fingers, even if it's a preset.
I can tell you confidently that's not what our primary focus was for the emergency mode. So I imagine it's less ideal than we'd like, but you make a great point.
Yeah. But I thought it was particularly beautiful during some of these moments in the show, like when Ari needs to go back and forth between being Scrooge and Belle, that you have these moments where he'll have like Belle like reach out a hand and then Scrooge is back on the other side like touching that hand, and the way that he would just use that physicality in a really meaningful way was quite beautiful. So well done, Ari. Any other questions so far? I know we've got like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
but
but
yeah.
Whether you thought about when Ari is away from a character, there's some animation or idle animation that's running so that it doesn't feel like the spirit has left
Right.
the character, especially if it's in a 2-frame, right?
Yeah.
That was what was interesting with the demo you just showed us. We can still see both of them, and so but you can kind of tell that one sort of
frozen.
holds, right?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we definitely did try both options. Go ahead, Ari.
I've watched wanted to see you did try that.
Oh, sorry, Ari, can you mute? Sorry, Ari, can you mute in world? Thanks.
Oh, that was hilarious. So, and out you were there.
There it is.
Oh, you're good.
Context. So absolutely, we did try that, except that all of a sudden I can have an emotional experience, and then the face would go dead.
Yeah.
So it was actually more really to have a title. You could not predict exactly when it was going necessary. You had time to give you a lot more freedom to pause, to take a pose that was expressive of the direct postal state rather than having a default neutral state. It was more useful.
That makes sense. That's cool.
Yeah. And I mentioned the improv game Freeze, by the way. For anyone who doesn't know that game, it involves people doing a scene together, and they are sometimes doing like overdone, big, wide motions, and someone else says freeze, and then I've never done this with Kevin before. Kevin, tap on me, and I was just about to give someone a hug, and then Kevin's going to do something else with it.
So this necklace here is gonna fit just like, or some bullshit.
Right, exactly. So there's something about that freezing in a certain kind of pose or posture that we found was actually much more exciting, and it drew you in more than any kind of animation we could just play on a loop. And because of the fact that we had Ari doing things like picking up Scrooge and constantly reminding you that he is in many ways Dickens's puppet, that it all, to our eyes at least, worked.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you know, so much of the thing about working in these media, and I know I'm speaking to a room of people who do this, so forgive me, is that it's a human first solution way more than it's a tech first solution. The answer to the question is always like the one that feels better. And then it's the one that will take us the least time to implement. And so I think that is
World techniques which you apply and on a train marketeer. One of the only examples for something one actor playing essentially bodies. The ventriloquist, the basics of ventriloquist, hard to right attention. So the puppet's looking at people when they're talking. You would look at the puppet when they're talking. It's actually the same thing applies. There's so many of the older theater techniques that apply to VR in new kind of mind helpful ways.
absolutely.
And by the way, the reason the face is so twitchy right now is because Ari has the headset up and the cameras are like desperately trying to grab any kind of information about his eyes or his mouth. It'd be great. Yes, okay. We like to see your real eyes, Ari. We don't get to see them in action. Yeah. And I'll just go through a few more cues here so you can see a little bit more of the lovely set design work that everyone did over the course of the show. Zoom out a little bit. This Marley door knocker was so wonderfully creepy. And you see there's certain places we might move the actors, or in some cases even the audience to make sure they're positioned correctly.
Is there an option for the audience to use portal jump?
Yeah, teleport.
Why?
Yep, so we have basically 3 different locomotion methods. One is your standard teleport, one is flying around. Both of those can have, blinders on for maximum not feeling sick. And then we've also added, very last minute, tilt brush control. So you can change the entire scale of the world, up, down, you can grab air and move that way. Jordan got to try it out. What do you think, Jordan?
That was really cool.
It was really cool. So yeah, we're trying to do a lot of that
I
stuff.
like the air moving, but the
Yeah.
flying.
Yeah, a lot of people feel ill with flying.
Totally. We have Snap Turn too, right?
Snap turns in
Yeah.
there too. Yeah, that helps.
Except for the sound coming from the PDA.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
because I'm
it's
triggering a bunch of cues.
These
right
are the
now.
cues, sound cues for the show.
Yeah, and then here, by the way, here's all the different kinds of environments I can just turn on and off. You'll notice we have one of them called Wonky London. And so we got Dickens Chamber off. I could, turn that back on if I wanted to, turn it back off. I'm just trying to get like a little bit of a sense of all the stuff going on in here.
Go to rural. That's
Rural? Yeah, let's
that's
go
a
to
big
rural.
exchange.
Yeah, we got a whole bunch of snow in our
environment.
yeah. Snowy. So this is where, of course, we have some different kinds of scenes. You know, fog is so important in the Suburbia of London. So this, of course, is like a manual way to jump to a bunch of different set elements. Here's a bunch of vertex animated people. Just a quick, fun tech note. With the previous shows,
snow.
yeah, it's just dancing by now, like you do. In the previous versions of the show, we had more metahumans dancing here, and metahumans, of course, are very heavy. And so Dante on our team actually did a great job creating what are called vertex animations by that, to be able to have this, Fezziwig crowd dancing scene without it feeling like, without it bogging down the frame rate a bunch. Such a big part of how we iterated this year was like, how can we optimize this so that it can run on a wide range of hardware, which is exactly what we were trying to avoid in the past. But guess what our goal is for this coming year? Let's see if we can get it to work totally standalone, and then we don't even need to tell people to have a computer. At that point, we're basically game developers. So, yeah. Oh, here's a fun one too. We've got a rehearsal light that we can turn on. Yeah, I know we gotta wrap up. We have a rehearsal light we can turn on because it is a very dark play, and sometimes we have actors or a stage manager who are just like, I can't see anything. So just literally having like house lights on is a very helpful thing inside of a show. I'm going to do our last couple of slides here, and then we'll...
I can tell you, as like a 30-year now theater producer, it was insane to wake up halfway through the process and be like, oh yeah, we should have work lights. Yeah, that's good. And it's crazy that there are still these things that we take so wholly for granted in the real world that somehow haven't made it in yet.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so thank you so much, guys, for listening. We are Agile Lens again. We're based in New York City. We try to do as many of these projects as we can. Here's a few things we've got coming up this year if you would like to follow us. One of them is the Passing XR, which is a really cool vol cap, slight mocap, 360 video, 180 video, performance piece from Gateway Chamber Orchestra from Othaldo Goliath, La Pasienza de San Marco, the telling of the Passion of the Christ from the perspective of St. Mark. And that is going to be a very cool on-demand experience, not live, where we are trying to capture the spirit of something that was live. You can see a little bit of what some of that looks like here. It's kind of like a music video. It makes you want to get up and dance. It's incredible. Ink and Paint is coming probably sometime around April of this year. It's kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit live in a physical venue in New York City, kind of a cabaret bar, and you will be able to see living, breathing cartoon characters through AR devices. And if you're like, I don't want to pick up a device, you will still see their shadows. So it's going to be a really cool in-person experience. And then I have this little image here because one thing we're really hoping to do this year, as I've been telling some of you already, is just start to like rapidly iterate on shows. So things like Christmas Carol take a few months, but we have all these tools, all these things we're playing with, all these things we want to do. Kevin has a really exciting Chekhov piece we're excited to start to play with. Ari has 1,000 things we'd love to do more stuff with him on. And the idea of this would be kind of like the Agile Lens Workshop Black Box Studio Experimental Theater House place. And this would just be like an app on the Quest Store or something like that. And we would just kind of announce very last minute, hey, we're doing a thing on Friday. It's going to be a 30-minute little workshop performance. And we don't want to just do this ourselves. We want to bring in collaborators and friends who want to try this stuff out too. So if that's something you or anyone you know might be interested in, get in touch with us. And we would like to do that. Hey, a QR code with lots of hearts. That one will take you to our contact page. Send us an email. Let us know. Anything you want to say?
At the bottom of that, if you don't want to reach out to us, but you want us to reach out to you, sign up. And thank you so much. I'm sorry we went a few minutes over, but we're just so excited.
Thank you, Ari.
Ari Tar. Hire him.